Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Trying something new today. I think it's a cool concept. I think you're going to like it. So, we're going to go through the timelines so you don't have to. So, we're going to go through Woj and Sham's timeline for NBA Twitter, the newsbreakers, the notorious newsbreakers. We're going to go through their timeline so you don't have to spend time going back and doing it yourself. And we'll do a little bit of analysis along the way. So, we're going to see how this works out. I think it's a cool concept. So, let's jump right into that. All right. So we're going to start in the middle here, midday to late day yesterday, late afternoon yesterday, where we got the updates for DeJounte Murray. So you'll see here, I got the timeline side by side. We're just going to go through and see the differences, small differences in the way they report stuff, but then also just get a recap of the NBA news day. So you can see here, yesterday, Woj and Shams pretty much simultaneously announced. I think Woj had it first. No big deal that DeJounte Murray was headed to the Pelicans. So we got that news really quickly and was, hey, what's this deal? Who's going back? Is it Brandon Ingram? Then we quickly found out that the Pelicans were trading a 2025 first rounder from the Lakers, which they could have had that pick this year. They'd have decided to defer it to next year and take their own first rounder this year. So maybe that could be looked at potentially as a better pick than the Pelicans own this year, even though the Lakers had a higher pick this year than the Pelicans did. They got the 7 seed, Pelicans got the 8 seed. You never know. Well, LeBron still he's gonna resign there. It's still a better asset to have than the Pelicans pick. And then the more favorable of the Milwaukee Pelicans 2027 first rounder, which is very interesting there because that pick, either of those teams could look vastly different in 2 years. The Pelicans are not a reliable franchise. Milwaukee has a really aging roster. Who knows in the next 2 years if Giannis decides to ask out? They've got Doc Rivers. If they don't have a good run this year, maybe they trade Damian Lillard again. There's a lot of things that could happen there. So that's not a bad asset to have, especially since you have the pick of the litter there, or I guess the more favorable one, so you don't have to worry about picking. And then Shams, so Woj had those 2 picks reported first, and then Shams added in the part about Larry Nance. And for a few minutes there, we really thought that was the entire deal, which was crazy that it didn't seem they got a play. Larry Nance is fine in his own right, but that was seemed to be a little bit of a weak package. But then we got the news from Shams and Woj that Dyson Daniels was going to be added into the added into the package as well. So we'll scroll up here. They have a lot of reposts basically here. So the full package is Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and 2 first round picks. One via the Lakers, one actually least favorable. With the first wording was most favorable. We'll go back. This is the first time I've seen that. It says, oh, least favorable. I just misread it. So that's me. So least favorable of the Pelicans and the Bucks first round pick. So that's a little bit better for the Pelicans. Live seeing that here. So that's the full package. I think it's a worthy chance for the Pelicans to take a swing on a player that's made all-star games and has shown the ability to pretty good player, pretty clutch time player sometimes. He had played good defense in the past with San Antonio, not really in Atlanta, but wasn't ever really sold on that pairing with him and Trae Young. So decent deal there. So obviously they've got some commentary on the deal. We've got the Trae Young experiment with DeJounte Murray. They're basically blowing that up. We'll see what happens with Trae Young. We've got some little tidbits in here, like Josh Richardson picking up his player option for $3 million. So we've also got Woj retweeting Andrew Lopez that Devontae Graham's moving the guarantee date back with the Spurs, which is interesting because that's $12 million for Devontae Graham. He hasn't been that kind of player in several years. So that's probably a trade piece if they want to make a move for some salary matching purposes. Josh Richardson, he wants to stay with the Heat. They probably are indifferent on it. He's played good for them in the past. We'll see if he ends up being a piece they move or what happens there. Also, too, we found out late yesterday that D'Angelo Russell was going to pick up his player option. Shams had that report, $18.7 million for next season. Some people thought he may opt out and try to get a bigger bag, but I don't think the market was shaping up to be good for him. I don't think the teams with space are going to be Philly, and Orlando probably doesn't want to get into that business. Philly maybe as a last effort if they miss out on the other players, but I don't think he's going to get. I think 18.7 is probably the top end for what he's going to get this year on the open market, and he'll probably still be able to get some kind of long-term deal after this, whether it's for that kind of annual value or not. That's an interesting part. He's also a trade piece now that they have that salary. interesting there. Woj has a couple of retweets about that, planning to exercise it and all of that good stuff. Shams also had that Jackson Hayes picked up the $2.4 million player option. Again, these players want to be a part of the Lakers. Who knows if the Lakers want them to really be key pieces next year, but it's up to the player to take that option. So it makes sense for Jackson Hayes to do that. You know, no qualifying offer for Brandon Boston Jr. with the Clippers. He really could never find the floor there. He's got some interesting potential. He seems like he can create a little bit of his shot. We'll see if maybe a team takes a look at him, maybe a younger team looking for a budget kind of option there. Maybe they can get him on a 1-year deal. Maybe he ends up in the Lonnie Walker range where he gets signed some minimums and some small deals to try to get opportunity places. So maybe he goes to a team like the Wizards or the Pistons or something like that on a small deal to just get some playing time. So let's see here. We also got today some of the updates. We'll go with Shams or with Woj first, excuse me. This is a little bit earlier. Joe Ingles, they're declining the option. Here's $11 million option. No surprise there. That was pretty much why they signed the 2-year deal, one with an option. Ingles didn't really provide that kind of value for them last season, so they'll probably maybe look to bring him back on a minimum, or maybe he goes to another contender and signs a small deal. Maybe he goes back to Milwaukee. Who knows? And then with the Lakers, some of the big news is that LeBron is going to opt out of the $51 million player option. The expectation he's going to resign with the Lakers. We also got some updated news. We'll see that as we scroll up here, that LeBron is interested in or is open to signing a smaller value contract if it means the Lakers can bring in a couple of stars. So we'll see. Trailblazers picking up the option on Delano Blanton. He showed a little bit of something at the end of the season last year. Might as well do that, see if there's something there, or just package him in a trade. We've got Russell Westbrook picking up the $4 million option with the Clippers. He's probably a minimum player from here on out. Why not stay in LA, stay with the Clippers? And he meshed pretty well with them last year. Something else is interesting. He will go with Shams here on the right. Is that Oklahoma City is declining the player options, or excuse me, declining the team options for the final seasons for Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, both around $2 million. The expectation there is that they're clearing the way for the team to work on long-term contracts with the players. So people were a little bit split on this. You could keep those cheap deals this year, keep that cap space and sign somebody else, and then sign these guys as unrestricted free agents in the following year. But you do open the risk of somebody else swooping in and signing those guys. What Oklahoma City is doing is they're probably going to try to sign favorable long-term deals with these guys as rotation players, similar to what the deals that the Grizzlies signed with Vince Williams Jr. and Gigi Jackson this year. Those two guys were converted two-way contracts that they signed, both for under $10 million over the course of 4 years, but really comes out to about $2 to $3 million a piece for each player over the course of those years. So those are really value contracts. I see that the Thunder are probably going to try to do something similar, maybe a little bit more money for those guys, a little bit more proven than the two Grizzlies. Interesting little tidbit there. Kevin Love is declining the $4 million option, but they both want him to resign there. He'll probably resign for something in the same region, or maybe the 2 or 3 year type of deal for $10 million or something like that, just to be in a place he wants to be. Cam Reddish exercising the $2.5 million option. Like I said, another one of those Laker players just coming back because they want to be there. We'll see if the Lakers have them in their plans. Jae'Sean Tate's an interesting player. The Houston Rockets picked up the team option for $7.6 million. He's a good rotation player that he got minutes for them. I don't know if he's going to get minutes for them now that they've drafted a couple guys to come in there at the guard position. He's also a guy that a lot of other teams like, so he's a pretty easy trade piece that they could throw into a deal or even do like a player for pick or second round pick or something like that. So we'll see what happens with Tate. Sadiq Bey, the Hawks are not tendering a qualifying offer to him. He tore his ACL at the end of the season. Sucks for him. It's really terrible timing. Really feel for a player that bad timing, especially since he's coming up for that. But hopefully he gets an opportunity somewhere. I think he's definitely good enough. He probably will get an opportunity somewhere. But this was a player that the Hawks traded, I think it was 5 second-round picks for in that weird Warriors James Wiseman deal sent into the Pistons, and that Bey went to Atlanta. They're cutting bait after 1 year on a guy. That's pretty good draft capital, 5 second-round picks. Not totally sure if that's all those picks came from Atlanta. It's not worth digging into. So now we kind of get into the stuff that I covered in another video as well about today's news. We've got Klay Thompson preparing to lose him. I went into that a little bit deeper, but it sounds like he's wanting to test the market and legitimately wanting to try another team. He may be done with the Warriors Shams had a couple tweets about him, and really three teams emerging like the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Mavericks. We've also heard that Clay was in Denver as well. That's also an option for the Sixers and the Magic too, if they want to look into that. They have the space for him. So Royce O'Neal picks up a new deal for 4 years, 44 million. Decent role player for the Suns. They didn't really have a lot of options there, so they re-sign Royce. It's not a bad deal. Let's see here. We got a couple Paul George tweets. So we got quickly big news: Piston declining the option on Evan Fournier, who basically, since he signed that deal with the Knicks a few years ago, has barely played with either team. They traded him to the Pistons. He's been a trade chip ever since he signed it. $19 million, a lot of money. A lot of people thought that the Pistons were going to pick that up and use that as a trade piece. They decided that they're going to decline it, and then it opens up a total of around $50 million in cap room. So the new GM there in Detroit's like, I'm not even going to worry about this. We didn't have a trade fall in our lap for him. Couldn't find anything. So we are just going to cut the contract and go start with just fresh cap space. We got Richaun Holmes declining his option, which was interesting, but he signed a new deal. There's only $250K guaranteed to the $13 million in the second year of it. So he basically becomes a 1-year contract player. Salary matching, not a big deal. The Wizards aren't going to be good, so they're probably going to trade him. Paul George declining his player option. We expected it / thought maybe he'd opt in to get to a trade. The Warriors were rumored there. Pretty much that's done. The Warriors can't sign him outright, so the Warriors' dream of Paul George is pretty much over. Torrey Craig picked up his $2.8 million player option for the Bulls. He's a decent role player as well. He could find time there. He always finds time when he plays there. Also had some Paul George tweets, but that's the end of his day so far. So we'll go through a little Woj news here. The Magic declining Mo Wagner, $8 million team option. His brother Franz is on the team, long-term option with them. Sounds like they both want to figure something out there, but Wagner's an interesting piece for a lot of teams. He's a big man that can shoot a little bit. He's mobile. He's not a starter by any means. He's probably like a third big, but he definitely can play some minutes for somebody. So he's going to have some options unless he just really wants to come back and play with his brother on a different deal, maybe a long-term deal. Also, too, the Grizzlies, this was something that was discussed a little bit on some podcasts. Didn't really know what the Grizzlies were going to do with Luke Kennard. He had a $14.8 million team option. Still think he's worth around that kind of money, but sounds like the Grizzlies are declining the option so that they can maybe get a more team-friendly long-term deal. It says both sides are eager to pursue a restructured deal. He's obviously the best shooter in the NBA. He doesn't play a ton of minutes, though. He's been injured a lot, too. I think probably a tax move for the Grizzlies. They're not going to go into the tax unless they have to. And if they re-sign, I think if they can re-sign him for something that $10 million per year or less number, they can potentially miss the tax a year before maybe they have to go into it next year. So we'll see. Interesting to see what the Grizzlies do with him. And we got the news about LeBron James declining the option and would be open to taking less money if they could sign a player. Let's see if they reported those players. I saw the players. The players he wants them to go after are Klay Thompson, James Harden, and Jonas Valanciunas, which are 3 JV. Valanciunas being in there is funny. It's random, but I think he would definitely help any team that he goes to. But funny to see that him in there with those 2 other names. We got Bol is going to return to the Phoenix Suns on a 1-year deal, probably a minimum deal. New coach Mike Budenholzer could definitely use a player like Bol, who didn't really get utilized that much with Frank Vogel last year. So it's an interesting piece for the Suns. And that pretty much gets us to the end of the last major tweets from them in the last couple of hours. Things we're looking for is updates on Paul George, Klay Thompson, and some of the free agencies getting ready to start on June 30th at 6 p.m. Yeah, so we went through the timelines. You don't have to do that now. You can just watch this video and you've got the latest news. Let me know what you think about the concept and if you want me to change anything about it, but I appreciate the time. And a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel would definitely help. Appreciate any support. And yeah, we'll talk to you later. Peace.